You know there's a way for nurses to start a business, but there's so many moving pieces. Cut through the crap. It's time to go right to the source and get real about what's working in business and marketing for nurses with your host, the founder of Nursepreneurs, Catie Harris.
Hi, it's Catie, and this is another episode of the Nursepreneur podcast. And today we have Meredith, who is the VP Director of Nursing Programs for SMART, which is Health, Wellness, and Performance. And I'm going to let her explain exactly how she got involved in this company. It looks like a lot of this was done as part of her Capstone project, and it looks like she's also been a neonatal intensive care nurse. So I imagine that, Meredith, you have a lot to share, a lot to tell us, and quite an experience, like a big experience in nursing. So thank you for being with us today. And if you could just start out giving us some background of where you started in nursing and how it led to where you are today.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Basically, I started out my nursing career as sort of a change of major. I was in college with a major of elementary education, and now looking back, I think that was not a good choice for me. I made a better choice in changing to nursing. I had always been really interested in the nursing profession, but I was not quite sure that I would be able to just handle being a nurse or get through nursing school and all the blood and guts and all that good stuff. But I loved the idea of being a baby nurse. So I just thought, you know what, let's do this. I'll get into nursing school. I ended up doing pretty well in nursing school, really loving it. And I got a job at a level 3 NICU as a new grad, and I still work there. I'm there. It's been 11 years now.
No, I find that very ironic that you were scared to go into nursing, and then you because that's like the scariest thing I think you could possibly work in.
Well, one awesome thing that I learned very quickly about neonates is that they are the most powerful people. They are such overachievers. They're not supposed to even be born yet. Their resilience is incredible. They amaze me every single day. I kind of always joke that maybe if nurses in general were as resilient as my preemies, we would be unstoppable. So I'm just amazed by my preemies every day, and I love that aspect of it for sure.
Okay, how long have you been a nurse?
11 years.
11 years, okay.
Yeah.
All right, and so you were working in the NICU, and then what? What did you go back to school, or what were you thinking at the time?
Yes, I kind of had a friend sort of talk me into going back to school. I had kind of always thought like, oh, I'd really love to teach, going back to, the teaching aspect. One thing that I really love about nursing is that we are always teaching, we're always learning, regardless of what level we're at. I have students, and I tell them all the time, like, you have the knowledge to be a teacher. So no matter what level you're at, you absolutely have something to teach and to learn. So my friend and I went to grad school kind of together, and it was nice to have, an accountability partner. So I got I was working towards my MSN in education, and it got to be just too much to handle. I was working full time. I was in school full time. I was a couple classes away from graduating, and I was like, do I really even still want to be a nurse? So I was in my head driving home one night. I'm like, I wonder what my husband would say if I came home and I told him I wanted to change professions. So I was just completely burnt out to the max. But I kept hearing about all of this, mindfulness stuff. And I was a little bit skeptical, but I also knew that whatever I was doing was not working for me. So I kind of started to look into it. And then along came my capstone project for grad school, which we were assigned to identify an issue or a problem in nursing education and come up with a solution to it. So the problem that I identified was that nurses get so much guidance, so much training into basically everything, but we don't get training in how to care for ourselves and coping mechanisms that come not only with school, but throughout everyone's career. So my solution was to incorporate mindfulness into nursing curriculum. So that kind of leads me to when I met my business partner, Tom. We were actually at a meeting at my hospital it was a committee that we were brainstorming ways that we can help and support nurses, basically. And I kind of feel like it was almost divine intervention that we were both at this meeting. But his wife works at the hospital that I work at, and they had asked him to come in and just kind of share some techniques, see what he did. And I kind of raised my hand and I was like, I'm in the middle of my capstone right now, and this is what I'm doing. And I said to my friend later, I'm like, he basically is doing for the corporate business world what I want to do for nursing. So we were both like, let's chat after this.
So what was Tom's background? Like how did he know to be in mindfulness?
He has training from the Benson Henry Institute that is out of Harvard Medical School. He's got his own business, which is smart, and then he does corporate training also for where he works.
Okay, but his background is actually business, but he kind of fell into mindfulness. And
he's actually got a teaching degree and an MBA.
Okay,
and he'll tell you he basically really likes to learn what make people successful. And he kept hearing about all these successful people, celebrities, athletes who practice mindfulness. And he kind of just said to himself, like, I'm going to look more into this and I'm going to help people get to where they want to be through mindfulness and resiliency training.
So two things with that, which is really interesting, because one, I always support that idea of, if you want to do something, you find people who are doing what you want to do and then figure out what they're doing, right? It seems like a simple concept, right? So that's great. And the second thing is that what I love about this story between you and Tom is that neither one of you is like a clinical psychologist, right? Or a psychiatrist. You don't have like a PhD in mindfulness, but you feel like you can share this with other people. You've seen a problem and you're addressing the problem. And that's one of the things that I'm always teaching my groups, is that the whole idea behind a business is finding a problem to deal with and providing a solution. And you don't have to be a PhD in the solution. You just have to put the effort in to understand it.
Yep, absolutely.
So you were doing it. Did you finish your capstone and your educations that you ended up getting? You've got your MSN?
Yes.
Okay. So you were burnt out, but you didn't stop. You kept pushing through. And then you met Tom and you were inspired by what he was talking about, and that's where we are. So you can pick it up from there. All right. So what happened next?
We kind of we met and we're like, hey, here's my vision, here's his vision. He's been trying to kind of get into the healthcare world for a little while, and he kind of thought, well, maybe a nurse would help me. So we kind of put together like a 1-hour presentation for a CEU. And we did that a couple of times for a hospital, and that kind of evolved into this course. Now, I sent in, we were trying to reach out to nursing schools and weren't getting the best response, I guess you could say, except that where I went to school, Chamberlain University, that I reached out to the president and I said, hey, here's what my capstone was all about. I would love to do something for your students, and I think we owe it to, the future of nursing to teach them these resiliency skills. And got an email back within a day or two. And we got a meeting with a little team that at the university, they were actually looking for ways to incorporate, soft skills into their nursing program of not these technical skills and academics. Those are obviously very important, but they kind of saw the same thing that I saw, was that we could do more for nursing students, and this will carry them throughout their careers.
Right.
So it was kind of like the right time at the right place at the right time.
Amazing how that happens.
Yeah. So we met with them, and we originally had like a train the trainer in that approach in mind. But they're like, but we have 23 campuses, so I am not really sure how that's going to work. So basically, we designed it around their course load. We designed it as an 8-week program because that is the traditional MBSR program length, mindfulness-based stress reduction. And I took one of those classes too after grad school to kind of just learn everything that I could about mindfulness in my own practice. So it kind of worked out that their courses go in 8-week increments as well. Okay. So each week we basically have a topic and a resiliency strategy that we introduce, and the faculty member in whatever class that they chose would do like a 2 to 5 minute exercise at the beginning of class at the first class of the week. And then students would watch our videos. They do their own practice that we instruct them to do. We give them the tools to do that. We have logs for them and some journaling exercises, that sort of thing.
So how did you know this was going to work?
We were very confident in mindfulness, and we know the power of it. But it was sort of a trial. So they actually they piloted our program for us, and so they've got like 450 plus students.
Oh wow, that's an awesome pilot.
Yes, exactly. So we're learning kind of what's working and what we can tweak for the future. We're always going to be making changes to make it better. They just finished up their pilot at the end of April. So we're kind of awaiting the results of some measurements that they took and survey results and comments from the students.
So did they give you any kind of feedback about how they thought it was going?
We've gotten really great feedback actually throughout the entire thing. Faculty is really happy with it. Students are pretty happy with it. The one big barrier that we came across was that students were not going to do it unless there is an incentive.
Like their grade depends on it?
Pretty much, yes. Which I was a nursing student twice. I understand you have to kind of just do what you have to do. But they figured out ways to either raffle off prizes or for a completion of it, or incorporated it into their points value for the course.
So moving forward, what I find interesting here is, especially kind of from like the marketing perspective, because everybody's like, oh, how do I get people to buy my stuff and blah, blah, blah. But so what you did was go to the school where you already had a relationship. So yes. That's like one of the most important things in business is your relationship. Who do you know, and how can you get in front of these people? So you got in front of the president of Chamberlain University, which is huge. You got a pilot of 450 students.
Yes.
So now you can take the results that they give you and move forward to other places and tell them about the outcomes that you have. So you have a pre-state and now you have a post-state of how they felt after. Okay. So what is kind of like, how are you brainstorming next steps? Like, how are you going to move this forward on a bigger scale?
We are hoping that they will officially incorporate our course into their curriculum. So we're kind of in the works of doing that to start that in the fall.
Okay. Would this be like a subscription thing that they buy kind of like your scenarios, and will you build new ones for them, or how will that work?
Great questions, because these have all come up with through conversations with other schools too, is that we have established the 8-week course. We also have, because the biggest question was, well, our students do this 8-week course and then what? They're just supposed to do all this practice on their own without any guidance. So what we are going to do is basically each month send to the students a micro learning lesson. Here's another challenge, try this week or next week, and so that we can help them not only establish the practice, but keep it going as well. Because that's really the key to mindfulness, is actually practicing. It's exercise for your brain. It's not like I'm going to go to the gym one time and expect to lose 40 pounds.
Yeah, why does that happen?
I don't know. I still, if someone can figure that out, that would be awesome. And then so we kind of have that built on, like, sort of as a package. And then the very last part of it is we have a 90-minute stress less for the NCLEX.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yes. So we kind of have packaged that together for schools, so they can either get just the 8-week, or they can add on kind of those extra 2, and we're charging per student.
Oh, that's great. So how did you come up with that business model? Like, how did you guys like brainstorm ideas? Like, how are we going to package and sell this and price it and all that kind of good stuff?
That was a big challenge for both of us, because we kind of just sort of reached out to different sources. Like, Tom knew what he would charge for a business, for him to show up and do a business. I kind of gauged, like, what have I paid for a course for a CEU. So it's kind of been sort of a guessing game.
Yeah.
And just feedback from people, potential buyers too, like, oh, we'd have to get a grant for that, or we'd have to incorporate that into student fees or something like that. So we actually wanted it for students. We wanted it to be basically equivalent to that of like a textbook.
Oh, yeah, that's good. And the only reason I pointed out is because it's another one of those kind of questions that comes up, especially in my groups, in that, how do I price this? And honestly, it's like, it really is like, I would start low, get some people in, and then start raising your prices till nobody pays it anymore. And that's like, there is no other way to do it. Right? So it is kind of a guessing game. So you made this into CEU hours as well. So is that something they can purchase?
Yes, so I should also say that it can be purchased by any nurse, just kind of a la carte. And it's just strictly online in your own self-practice. It's self-guided. So we are working on getting CEU approval. That's been a whole other process.
I'm sure.
Yes. So that will be wonderful though for faculty members too, to do along with their students. They're going to get something pretty awesome out of it, CEU wise. And we've marketed to some hospitals, but there's kind of that component of, well, nurses want CEUs. Like, we'll do a lot for CEUs.
It's kind of like getting that grade. You have to get the CEUs, so why not?
Exactly. Which I totally get. I get it.
Right. Yeah. No, because I've seen a lot of mindfulness stuff start to pop up, and I'm trying to remember, like, when I was a nurse. So, and maybe you can address this a little bit. Like, you don't realize that you're getting burnt out until you're burnt out.
Yes.
And in a lot of ways, I felt like if I were to do preemptive therapy or mindfulness, it was kind of like I failed or something. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't strong enough to do. So how do you guys approach that kind of mentality in nurses to kind of, because you really do need to preempt the burnt out.
Yes, that's so true. And you're so right about burnout. You're like, going, and I'm done. Basically, these are just resiliency strategies, and things are so simple. I was very skeptical about it when I first started hearing about it, because I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to fit something else into my already crazy schedule. I don't have time for this.
It's not important enough,
exactly,
right?
And really kind of what, I don't want to say sold me on mindfulness, but what really intrigued me about it was the success of my own practice. Just a few minutes here and there each day can make such a big difference. And there's really a lot of good science behind mindfulness as well. There are actual brain structure changes.
So what do you do each day? So, I mean, maybe that's something that you can tip off so people can work on.
Yeah, my biggest message to nurses is we are all busy. We are we have crazy shifts. We are at risk for burnout. We are giving everyone tools to just fit this into your busy day. So it doesn't have to look like an hour of yoga every morning before your shift, because that's not realistic for most people. It's not realistic for me anyway.
I keep saying I'm going to do that. I talk about it a lot.
Yeah, it would be wonderful if I could do that, but it's just not the reality. So basically, like, when I wake up in the morning, I try to just do like a 5 or 10 minute meditation, and you can grab an app, you can grab you can do a self-guided one. You can just set a timer and just be alone with your thoughts and take good, deep, mindful breaths, cleansing breaths, and just focus on the here and now. Then at night, I like to do sleep meditations, because most of the time I'll lay my head down and I'm exhausted, but the thoughts get racing. So then I'll turn on one of those and turn on a sleep meditation and kind of drift off that way.
And so these types of apps, I mean, they're just free things that you can get on the internet, or did you guys develop your own app, or is that something that's coming?
No, that would be pretty awesome for us to do. That's a goal down the line for sure. Yeah, apps. If you look on iTunes, there are a million different apps out there, and pretty much all of them have a free component, a non-paid component. And
so you can't really download a bad app, or
pretty much, yeah.
So just having some kind of inner focus for at least 5 or 10 minutes, maybe once or twice a day.
Exactly.
And you're saying that made all the difference in your practice?
Yes, absolutely.
That's pretty, I mean, it's a huge claim. That's awesome that it could be, so simple.
Yes. And I think it's important to state too that mindfulness isn't strictly meditation. It's a very, very big component of it. But we fit things into our course that are just easy things to do throughout your day. Like, my favorite just here's one thing you can do throughout your day to be mindful is an anchoring activity. So just pick one thing that you do every single day that's that you do often. So for a nurse, it could be like, we're on the NICU, we're on a locked unit. So every time I badge into a door, or every time before I would enter a patient's room or reset a pump, whatever it is, just pick one thing. And every time you do that thing, just take one good pause and mindful breath and move on with your day.
Oh, that's a great tip. I love that.
Me too, and I use it.
So what I love in what I'm hearing here, and what I want to kind of point out for people that are listening is that, because I have a lot of people say, oh, I don't know what I can start a business in, blah, blah, blah. But you're basically selling resiliency, right? You're selling the ability, which is something that, you could sell happiness, you can sell joy, you can sell all these things. And it's all about you as the business, and you offering people a way to achieve this type of skill set. So, and like I said before, you don't have to be a PhD in resiliency to sell something like this. And your business has been in an evolutionary state in that when you first started out, you probably didn't foresee it being what it's evolving into. In a lot of ways, because a lot of my students and people, they want to create these 5-year business plans, and I'm like, why don't we just start the business first and see where it goes? Because there's a lot of evolution that happens in business. So where do you see this kind of going in the next maybe year or so? Like, what are the big plans?
Hopefully we'll get a couple schools on board that really are serious about getting it into their curriculum. And hopefully too, we'll get some hospitals once we get those CEUs approached and get some hospitals to maybe buy it for their nurses, or meet the nurses halfway, or do payroll deduction or something, to really give nurses a way to advocate for themselves and to take care of themselves.
And what do you think the resistance is behind kind of the schools of nursing? Why wouldn't they embrace this and be like, oh my God, we've been waiting for somebody to do this? What do you think of that?
It still is, it's a topic that's still not well understood, I think. So that's part of Tom and my goal, is to really spread the word that this is powerful stuff. It's backed by science. You don't have to, if you don't believe us in our own practice and our results from it, look at the literature. I think that's part of it, and then cost is another part of it. So I can certainly understand that too. College is very expensive.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole different topic, of course, but So, but it's like it's kind of like one of those things. Like, if you thought that if you did X, then you would make millions of dollars. I mean, you would do it, right? And the same with something with resiliency. If this would be the difference between you being like an okay burnt out nurse and you having just like an amazing practice, like people would invest whatever they could, right? I mean, you would drop everything to do it.
Yes.
So that's kind of like a mindset issue that I think a lot of us have to overcome. And plus that idea of, if you do mindfulness, there's something wrong with you. You're like admitting,
yeah,
what's wrong with me.
Part of our message too is that you have to advocate for yourself, because nurses we're coming a long way in our culture that nurses need support other than just the tools, to the physical machines or whatever to take care of their patients. But this really does trickle down into patient care. Don't you want, I want a nurse who is present and centered and level-headed. It really trickles down into so many aspects of patient care too. So I think that's another thing that people don't realize, is that it's not just for the nurse. it is for everyone that we interact with.
Right. And, you know, I feel like part of this message really is driving home that there will be something wrong with you if you don't do these things, right? Because you're going to,
yeah,
you will burn out. You absolutely will burn out if you don't take care of yourself.
Right. Every time I present this to, you know, in a CEU format, in a live classroom setting, I tell my story and then I stop and I look around and I said, can anybody relate to this? And pretty much everyone says, yep. And that's something that we just don't prepare nursing students and nurses for.
Yeah, no, I think it's hugely important. I see on your website there's a couple other people. So it's you and Tom, and then it looks like you have a nutritionist, yoga instructor, fitness instructor. What roles do they play in all of this?
This is so basically they have their own little parts in our course. It's not just me and Tom. I'm glad that you addressed them because I wanted to make sure that I address them if it didn't come up in conversation, because this course would not be what it is without them. Basically, this isn't just a mindfulness course. It's like you said, we're really reaching for resiliency. And part of that is not just working the brain, it's working every holistic aspect of the student or the learner. So we have a part on nutrition, we have a part on, Jessie is a master's prepared dietitian. So she has got like a little handout for you. She goes through some really helpful tips of like, think about your hunger scale, and give some ideas of just quick snacks of on the go, because that's what nurses need. Amy is a certified personal trainer and she has a master's in exercise science. She puts together a 5-minute exercise routine and a 10-minute no sweat exercise routine. So it's
that.
Yes, exactly. So it's totally doable to work into your schedule. So that is amazing. Peggy is a business psychologist and she does a segment on emotional intelligence, which is something that all nurses, all nursing students absolutely need. And Stephanie is a yoga instructor and a NICU nurse. So she gives some really awesome tips of things you can do at your desk while you're charting or between patient rooms, or just basically all of these things are just little things that you can fit into your day. It's totally realistic for anyone to fit into their day if they really put their mind to it, and you'll be better for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge because like you're not going to stop in the middle of your shift and do an hour of yoga like you said, but
exactly.
You could certainly fit some yoga exercises while you're charting.
For sure.
So it's very pertinent to nurses. I love that. That's really awesome. All right, Meredith, this has been amazing. I really love what you guys are doing. I think this is incredible. I got a few things for you after this call to maybe put you in touch with some people. But
awesome.
If nurses want to find out more or to take this course or even get that 90-minute stress less for NCLEX, which sounds awesome, how would they find you? Where would they go? What would they do?
They can go to smarthwp.com.
Okay, and I will put these links in the show notes so they can get that, smarthwp.com.
Yes.
And they can find out everything they need there.
Yep, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.